And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show, everybody. It is Thursday, October 31st. Happy Halloween. I'm dressed up as Josh Engleman today, which is pretty much the best thing anyone can dress up as. 4 games today, coming off of yesterday's absolutely ridiculous, insane, put whatever word you want to put on it, just a preposterous slate. A little bit calmer today, although we've got a lot of giant question marks. Before we get started, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman. Look at some of these stat lines from yesterday. This is just nuts. Nope, that's going to be too big. That'll be fine. Perfect. Towns must have been listening to the shows because the moment I was just like, I'm out on Karl Anthony Towns, 44 and 13. No defensive stats, which is a bigger problem for the Knicks, but Towns with a bit of a breakout, 17 of 25 from the field. Still only took 5 threes, but if everything's going in, it doesn't matter where they're coming from. We didn't think Dennis Schroeder could smash again on back-to-back days. Au contraire, 33 points and 8 assists. Trae Young, 35 and 15. Nick Richards, stupid, 24, 14 and 4, and 5 stocks. Tatum had 4 stocks. I'm going to assume a bunch of other people had a ton. Bilal Coulibaly, 27 points, 9 boards and assists, and 4 stocks. Jakob Poeltl had 20 and 16. Jared Allen had 20 and 17. Just a truly dumb day. Truly dumb. Andrew Nembhard, one of my favorite plays, played 5 minutes and then never came back. Just pure nonsense yesterday. Absolute pure nonsense. Trey Mann went crazy off the bench. Jalen Johnson had 21 and 17. Zaire Williams had a shit ton of stocks again. Suggs had 6 stocks. Draymond had 6 stocks. Crazy. Oh my God. Just a truly bonkers night. We got all the value in the world, and then everybody on the slate was straight flames. Everybody played well. It's nuts. Cody Martin had 25 points yesterday. I mean, the amount of people in this top 20 of game score, there's a lot of names on there that you didn't expect. Joval, Dort, Cody Martin, Mathurin. I mean, like, Nick Richards was a great DFS play, but you don't expect him to have the 5th best game of anybody on the slate in game score. That's a bit of a stretch. You know, like even Grady Dick and Giddey being in the top 20. Incredible. Nick, yeah, I ended up with a little bit of man, but it didn't matter. Nothing came about. If you didn't thread the needle yesterday, you were doomed. Isaiah Jackson was one of my most exposed players. He was a bit of a bust given what ended up happening on the rest of the slate. Yeah, Jared Allen went absolutely nuts in that first half against AD and the Lakers. I had a lot more Nick Richards prior to all of the stupid news in that final hour. It would have been a lot cooler if that news never came out and I just continued to have 3x the field of Nick Richards, but alas, life doesn't work that way. You guys want to talk some basketball? I do. Let's do it. Yeah, the only bad plays that existed were the dudes that I rostered. Jose swapped out Nick Richards to Jackson. I mean, like, Jackson's a better play yesterday for sure, but yeah, that one stings. The Milwaukee Bucks are 6-point favorites in Memphis. 226 total for this one. Now, this one's going to be a pain in the ass. A couple of these are. So Milwaukee's going to be very easy. Memphis, on the other hand, is basically we can't talk about them. And we'll get into that in a second. Let's start it off on the Milwaukee side. We'll start with ownership and just sort of look across the board. We've got around 20% coming into Giannis on both sites. We've got around 10% coming into Damian Lillard across both sites. Gary Trent is 40 on FanDuel, 20 on DK. Taurean Prince is 20 on DK and unowned on FanDuel. Lopez is mostly uninteresting. And then Bobby Portis is 20% owned on DraftKings, 40 on FanDuel. Now, this matchup for Milwaukee is going to be really weird. So, Marcus Smart got hurt yesterday, hurt his ankle. I would be shocked if he's playing today. I didn't project him in. Desmond Bane had some sort of like oblique tweak, I believe. He left yesterday's game early. I see no scenario where Desmond Bane is playing. It's also a back-to-back. No idea if Ja plays. We have no idea if Jaren Jackson plays. So the Memphis side of this one is mostly a crapshoot at this moment. Thank God this is the 8 o'clock game. We're going to get all of this news by 7:30. So the starting lineup for Memphis, just if you want to just write 12 names down on a piece of paper, throw them in a bag, and grab the first 5, that's as good of a guess as any for who the hell is going to be starting today. Milwaukee is set in stone rotation-wise. First thing that I see from Milwaukee is that Damian Lillard should be more owned. 8,800 on DK, 8,900 on FanDuel. I had him in the optimal lineup twice as much as he's owned right now. At the very least, he looks like a great GPP pivot to somebody pulling a little bit more ownership. Maybe it just comes up as the day goes on, but I think Dame looks fantastic for GPPs. Cass fan, sorry, man. Look, I did not have the knowledge that Andrew Nemhard, after playing 32 minutes the previous game, was going to get 5 minutes and come out with knee tendonitis. I can't do that. That one sucks. I hate it. Trust me. It screwed me too. Giannis looks good, but I think he's properly owned. He should be in that 20% range. 10-7 on DK, 11-2 on FanDuel. I don't think I have to explain to you about rostering Giannis Antetokounmpo. Gary Trent's up next. He's a little over-owned on FanDuel. I'm confident in saying that. Definitely a priority. Definitely a good play. But the fact that he's only shooting guard eligible, that's really limiting on a 4-game slate. If he had shooting guard, small forward, I mean, he'd be significantly more owned, but that would make him more like a 40% guy to me. Right now, I think it's a little rich. Taurean Prince is too cheap on DK, even as a guy that sucks. 0.58 fantasy points per minute for Taurean Prince. That is dreadful. We're talking about like a 10% usage guy. But at 4K on a 4-gamer, that's a really nice value piece for a guy that's playing 32 minutes a night. Brook Lopez is fine. Certainly not a priority. Just shows up whenever. And then Portis. 6K on DraftKings. 20% owned. Seems about right to me. 5,800 on FanDuel. Has the power forward eligibility. 40% owned there. Maybe a hair over owned, but again, I do think Gary Trent and Bobby Portis are like the best or the easiest options to get to on the FanDuel side. I certainly prefer Giannis, but in terms of just like lineup construction, I think it's very easy to want to get to Bobby Portis. After that, I don't anticipate playing any of the Milwaukee bench other than Portis. Connaughton is bad. DeLon Wright's bad. AJ Green's bad. Whoever's showing up in the rotation These guys are all like 0.75 fantasy point per minute guys. I don't anticipate getting to the Milwaukee Bucks bench. If I'm ranking the Milwaukee guys on DraftKings, it's Giannis. It's Dame as a pivot. Taurean Prince, Bobby Portis, Gary Trent, Brook Lopez. By the way, these guys, absolutely delicious. I hate the company. I don't ride hard for these dudes. I had a friend that used to work there. Might have actually designed the can. Isn't there any longer. Shout out Under Armour. But it's a delicious coffee product. Now, I don't really know what we can say here about Memphis. I led off with it. The anticipation is going to be no Smart, no Bane. And I think the more likely scenario is that one of Ja or Jaren Jackson don't play today. Ja seems more likely to me, given that he missed a game last week or earlier, whatever. This season, there's been 4 or 5 of them. So it's really hard to talk about these guys. Assuming I'm right, and Smart and Bane are out, very clearly, like, Jalen Wells is going to be a guy that we have to get to for value. If John Conchar plays, he'll be a guy that we probably want to get to for value. I'm guessing we're going to be pretty interested in Scottie Pippen one way or the other, but the Morant status will take it from like guy you play and he looks okay to guy you're playing a lot. Santi Aldama should just, I don't think that I have anything new for him. No matter who's in or out, I think he's going to be playing like 28 minutes. If Morant and Jackson are out, then maybe he gets a little bit north of 30. I had him 11% optimal on DraftKings, 12% optimal on FanDuel. So I'll definitely have my eye on Aldama no matter what. And I'm going to have my eye on Scottie Pippen Jr. no matter what. But those guys can get boosted by the status of Morant or Triple J. If Triple J is in, I think he looks really good. 7,400 and 7,800. I shouldn't say really good. Rosterable. Triple J is sort of like, I'm not comparing these guys in terms of talent or anything, but like he's as optimal to me as like Bobby Portis is on DraftKings. I don't think I'm going to go to any of the bigs unless something really breaks weird. We're going to need Jaren Jackson out for that for sure. But they're just sort of playing Jay Huff, Zach Edey, Brandon Clark. All these guys are getting like 16 to 19 minutes every night, but they're all in the mid 4Ks. So we're going to need Jackson to be out, and so that we can increase some of their minutes, maybe into the 20s, and make them more appealing. But for right now, there's nothing I can say about Memphis. They legitimately could be missing Ja Morant, starting point guard, Marcus Smart, starting shooting guard, Desmond Bane, starting small forward, Jaren Jackson, starting power forward. They might be missing 4 of their 5 starters. There's nothing you could do with that kind of information when they're on a back-to-back and don't have an injury report. So I'm just going to put a pin in this one. Deeper dive tonight isn't me. I'm on the Live Before Lock show tonight. But make sure you're tuning into the deeper dive. We should have a lot more information there. And if we don't have Memphis information by that point, I'll be on Live Before Lock. Watch that one. Alrighty. Schedule for the rest of the day. Buckle up, because everything is in different places. All right, here we go. You ready? NFL Strategy Show. It's not at 10 o'clock today. It's at 10:15. So it's 15 minutes later than normal. Seems like that's going to be regular moving forward, too. That might just be Mondays and Thursdays. I know Laffy has a VOD that he records, and they kicked that down a bit. But either way, 10:15 NFL Strategy Show. That actually happens to be Greg and Gajeski today. I think Coffey's getting an MRI on his knee. He thinks he tore his MCL. I think I'm right. All right. NHL Strategy Show is at 1 p.m. today, a little bit earlier than it normally is. This is where everything gets mixed up. We have Thursday night football tonight. So our schedule is a little bit weirder than it normally is. So pay attention to this. Lock for the NBA is at 8. But the NBA Deeper Dive is going to be from 5:30 to 6:30. That's going to be Eric and Spags. Live Before Lock is going to be 6:30 to 7:30. That's going to be myself and Bellman. We're going to be leaving the NBA show 30 minutes before lock. So we are not going all the way up until 8 o'clock today. We're going to be done NBA at 7:30 because we have NFL Live Before Lock at 7:30 for Thursday night football. So schedule is very different. Everything is already on YouTube right now. So if you want to see that time schedule for the shows, it's there for you to plan ahead. But it is a little bit different today than it normally is. We had to move some schedule stuff around. And hit that like button. All right, Houston Rockets, Dallas Mavericks. Lucky for us, a game that we can talk about a little bit easier. Neither one of these teams is on a back-to-back. Both teams have their injury reports out, and nobody really has anybody on the injury report that is providing any sort of new information. Houston, 6-point dogs in Dallas, 225 total. I think that line looks good. Highest owned guy from Houston, not close. Not close. 40% to Fred VanVleet on DraftKings and on FanDuel. And I completely agree. He was 25% optimal for me on DK, 29% optimal for me on FanDuel. I should add coloring to that. That'd be fun. I'll do that later. Fred VanVleet looks absolutely great. He's playing 36, 37 minutes a night. He's a fantasy point per minute guy. He is going to be one of the chalkiest plays today, and he absolutely deserves every bit of it. I don't want to talk anybody out of it. You're putting Fred VanVleet in your cash lineups on both sites. It's a no-brainer. Ownership for the rest of these guys is a little bit different. Dylan Brooks is 10% owned on DK and FanDuel. No one else is in double digits on DraftKings. Jalen Green and Amin Thompson are both 10. Tari Eason's 10 on FanDuel. And then Jabari Smith is 20. So very different ownership across DK and FanDuel today. Which makes sense. I mean, FanDuel aggregate ownership is 100 percentage points higher. And it looks a little bit different from positions. But the main takeaway is going to be get Fred VanVleet. And then Jalen Green is sort of like Houston's Dame for me today. I think he's wildly underowned for GPPs. I think this whole team is to a degree. But Jalen Green is my Dame for Houston. And I really like Jabari Smith for 5,900. Not the best per minute dude in the world. He's like a 0.85 guy. But he's only 5% owned on DraftKings and has power forward eligibility. Him having that MPE on DK really increases the flexibility. So I like Houston more than the public likes Houston on DraftKings. On the FanDuel side, I think these guys are mostly correctly owned. I still think Jalen Green might be a little underowned. I don't have a ton of interest in Şengün, but he's all right. Better, more of a GPP play than like a core play. Just like a guy you want to pivot to in a chalky lineup. Brooks is always a guy you can get to. You're never going to enjoy it. He's a 0.6 fantasy point per minute dude on DK now. It's really hard to be much worse than that. So do with that what you will. For the bench, Amin Thompson's getting love on FanDuel because he's 4,800. I have no problem with it. Tari Eason's getting love on FanDuel. I don't like that one nearly as much, but Thompson, Eason, Adams, if he's playing, Whitmore, Reed Shepherd, none of these guys look any good on DraftKings. For Houston, it's Fred VanVleet, consensus great play. Don't be afraid to get weird in GPPs and get yourself Jalen Green or Jabari Smith. I think they're the pivots. God, I love coffee so much. All right, Dallas. Luka Doncic is around 15% owned on both sites. Kyrie Irving, on the other hand, is 50 on both sites. Now, he was definitely the highest optimal guy for me. I had him basically the same as Van Vliet, so those two guys look really similar. Kyrie's pulling a little bit more ownership on DK than Van Vliet is. I think the only reason that's happening is because Kyrie has point guard, shooting guard, and Van Vliet's only point guard. And that little flexibility is probably worth 10% on a day like today. But Kyrie looks amazing. Happy to grab Van Vliet and Kyrie, combo those dudes up in this one and print some money. Ownership doesn't stop here, though. For some strange reason, DraftKings thought, we'll price 32-minute-a-game PJ Washington at 4,800. So he's projected for 40% ownership on DraftKings. He is more appropriately priced on FanDuel at 5,800, and he's 10% owned there. Klay Thompson's in the 20 to 25 range. Lively's in the 10 to 15 range. Daniel Gafford's like 20% owned. So lots to talk about here. Let's touch on that PJ Washington ownership. His price is broken on DraftKings. That is not proper. Now, not the best per minute, dude. He's 0.8. That's about like the floor of, okay, that guy's not awful. He should absolutely be heavily owned on DK because 4,800 is just not a price tag that I'm in any way concerned about. Klay is fine. It's the flexibility that's carrying his ownership. When you're shooting guard, small forward, and you can go into shooting guard, small forward, guard, forward, and utility, and you're a starter, your ownership is naturally going to be juiced a little bit. So I'm not surprised to see Klay getting love. I'm honestly a little surprised to see Daniel Gafford grabbing close to 20% ownership on both sites. He seems pretty locked into 20 minutes. He's going to start. He's probably not going to close, and Lively's going to be playing around 26. I don't really need... I would much rather just pay a couple extra $100 and get to Lively. Not the best per minute guy in comparison to Gafford. And certainly Gafford, all it takes is Lively aggressive foul trouble for Gafford to soak up a couple extra minutes. But on days where he's going to be 20% owned and nothing else is happening, I'm assuming he's going to grade out worse for me, and he does today. I'd rather get to Lively. Dinwiddie, Najee Marshall, Quentin Grimes, I'm not really seeing it. If you're playing 150, those guys are going to show up, but they wouldn't be names that I'd be prioritizing clicking on. And then for Luka, 11-2 on DK, 11-5 on FanDuel. We know we have Giannis as well. We have Wemby on this slate. Harden, Durant, Booker. We got a lot of pay-ups today. They all sort of look a little similar to me. But, you want to have 30% of Luka today? Yeah, I get it. I think that he's properly owned in that 15 to 20% range. What do you guys like for Houston and Dallas? Because I didn't ask for Milwaukee and Memphis for obvious reasons, but Houston and Dallas is not a game where we have a lot of question marks. So what are you guys looking at for Houston and Dallas? Do you have anybody that you want me to dig into or take a look at? Do we want to look at any advanced stats for these guys? Happy to dig in here however you want. I have the line at 6.5. The line is actually 6, so I don't see anything really crazy there. Van Vliet versus Luka. I mean, hard to compare the two since they're separated by $4,000. I mean, Fred Van Vliet is unequivocally a better DFS play today. But it's not that I don't like Luka. Chris Valentine, I agree. My expectation is that they lean more and more on Najee Marshall as the year goes on. Oh, Mark. So do I. Yeah, Daquan, yeah, Jalen Green usage is up quite a bit right now. I think I ended up bumping him 3 or 4%. Let me look. Yeah, my baseline was a little like just shy of 29, and I locked him in at 30, which is like an extra like point and a half of scoring. Yeah, Steven, agreed. Şengün's production seems down. Any reason why? I haven't looked, so I'm gonna pull up dunks and threes and see what he's done so far. Oops, wrong window. There we go. There we go. So let's look at Şengün and see what he's done so far. Okay, that sizing looks good. All right, we'll go right there. And we'll go right there. All right. So usage down 2 points so far, playing a couple less minutes. Holy shit. It's just shooting luck. It's just shooting luck. You just can't make a bucket. Rebounding looks great. I mean, he's rebounding in a way that is not really comparable. Assist rate's down a little bit, but that doesn't really surprise me. If this team's going to be fully healthy, then of course they don't need him as much yet. I expect that to come up a little bit as the season goes on. Turnover rate looks fine. That's just a little fluky in steals. Yeah, you just can't make a shot. That's just bad luck. I'll bet my life that Alperen Şengün doesn't continue to shoot 40% at the rim. Like, that number is going to become 60, and mid-range is going to become 40-something, then everything will look normal again. So that's not too bad. Jake DeWitt. I'm going to put that on the screen. That's funny. I had Trey to get 30 plus and 14 plus assists. Problem is I added 5 other legs that didn't hit. That'll do it. That'll do it. All right. So we got Houston in. We've locked Dallas in. Yeah. He just hasn't made shots. I'm not going to read into that one at all. From now on, I'm just going to call you random Liverpool player names instead of trying to say "You'll Never Walk Alone," Liverpool Football Club, 1892. So that's fine. So Joe Allen says 40% at the rim is wild. Guess we just got to wait for the efficiency to normalize. This is going to be fun. That's going to be a good gimmick for me moving forward. Why Şengün's minutes down and still priced so high? It's early. Look, Houston is a team with, I don't want to say like an embarrassment of riches, because that points Boston in a different light, but like Houston has a billion bodies that there's no real incentive to run anybody in particular into the ground. Like, you're never not playing Fred VanVleet 36 minutes. That dude only knows how to play that many minutes. But like, when it comes to Brooks, Jabari, Şengün, Thompson, Eason, Whitmore, I mean, they're barely playing Reed Shepherd right now. I thought Reed Shepherd was going to be playing like 20 minutes a night. So they've just got a lot of flexibility early. Ime Udoka is a smart coach. No need to put ridiculous miles on Şengün now. I'm glad we're on the same page, man. I'm glad we're on the same page. This Simone Mignolet guy in the chat is awesome. If it's ever bad and you say something I don't like, I'm going to call you Loris Karius. All right, let's talk ads. Bloop. Not that you couldn't see the banner at the top of the screen already, but we are celebrating this week at Stokastic because we had a really awesome experience for Sunday NFL. You guys can see the graphic on the screen right now. Rick12324 with that Stokastic avatar finished first in the millie, which makes him a millionaire. So he picked up the millie, and we want to celebrate that with a little bit of a bonus for you guys. 30% off any NFL package that we have for your first payment. Week or month, whatever you're looking for. There's Thursday Night Football today. Perfect opportunity to sign up right now. Cover yourself for the week if you want it, or for a month in unlimited slates. That'll cover your projections, ownership, a boom bust tool, all of our simulation products, our single lineup simulator, the contest generator, the actual sims, if you're playing multiple, like a lot of lineups, post contest sim, so you can evaluate how you've been playing. All of this is included. And we've got a game tonight. There's a link in the description of this video. You can click that and immediately sign up. Super simple. Promo code is MILL, M-I-L-L, not MILF, to whoever asked that yesterday. MILL, M-I-L-L. Sign up now. If you like the NFL, don't sleep on it. What was the sim ROI on the millie lineup? No idea. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know if we have it up or not. All right. Post contest Sunday. Was it the Mega Millionaire? I don't think it was. No, it wasn't. We might not have it because there's too many entries. I don't see it in the list. I'll ask about that. We might not be able... It might not be in here because of the entry count right now. I'll have to ask about it because I don't see it. Unless I'm blind. But this is the only millie that I see. Treats, you could type in MILF. You're not going to get 30% off. All right, let's get to game number 3. San Antonio Spurs, 2-point dogs in Utah, 223 total. The only thing I'll say is this. Steven, I know you're here. There's no chance that Wemby is out based on the line right now. I can say that confidently. I can show you right now. So right now, even with Wemby in, this will be interesting. And we have a Q tag on Markkanen too. So it's possible we get no Wemby, no Markkanen, and they offset a little bit. That could be a situation. But Wemby drives everything here. Let's just say Markkanen is in and Wemby somehow ends up out. I'm going to be really quick about this. Right now, I have the line as basically as a pick'em. If I take Wemby out, I'm just going to give his minutes to like Charles Bassey or something to just hold for a second. But I want to show you the impact of this. So remember, I have the line as basically a pick'em. If Wemby ends up out, and I give like 30 minutes to Zach Collins and then like a little bit more to Bassey, and then I'll hide 5 more on like a random guy. This is going to update and show you. That goes, if Wemby doesn't play and Markkanen does, I have Wemby worth 4 points to this line. I would have Utah then favored by 4. So I don't think it's something that we could, if Markkanen wasn't questionable, then we could play around with these lines. But the push-pull between those two guys is really going to complicate matters. But I think Wemby's worth about 4 points to this line today. So something to keep in mind as we move forward. All right, let's get him back in now. So, like I said, Spurs, I'm assuming that he's in for right now. He's in our ownership. There's no reason to assume differently. 20% ownership coming into Wemby on DK, 37 on FanDuel because he has the power forward eligibility. He looks infinitely better on FanDuel because of that. I'm not super excited about Wemby. I think he looks pretty much exactly like Luka. And I think Giannis looks better than both of them, which shouldn't be all that surprising. Houston's got a competitive matchup against Dallas. San Antonio, at least for Wemby, center only is a little limiting. So Giannis is the guy for me of the 3 pay-ups that we've looked at so far. The next guy that's a real problem and is warranted is Jeremy Sohan. 5,800 on DraftKings, 6,300 on FanDuel. He's 50% owned on DK and 30% owned on FanDuel, and I think he deserves every bit of it. Power forward only on both sites. This guy's going to be one of the chalk plays. I would expect him to be in cash lineups today. Just a guy you need to get to. The Barnacle of the Bay is between 15 and 20% owned on both sites. Completely deserves it. That basically ends the guys that are getting played on DraftKings part of San Antonio. Chris Paul looks okay. I think Julian Champagnie is under-owned on DK, but not exactly a priority. It's FanDuel that's crazy. Harrison Barnes is 20% there. Sohan's 30. Wemby's 30. Chris Paul is 33% owned on FanDuel. He's $500 cheaper than he is on DraftKings. Keldon Johnson is 26% owned on FanDuel. 5K small forward, power forward. That's $700 cheaper than DK. It's a little over-owned to me, but he does look like a nice value today on FanDuel. And then Champagnie not getting a lot of love on FanDuel. I look at Champagnie in a... This will be an interesting one. Okay. Riddle me this one, chat. You tell me what you think here. Gary Trent on FanDuel is $4,800, shooting guard only, and 40% owned. Okay? Julian Champagnie is $4,700. So he's $100 cheaper than Gary Trent. They're similar point per minute guys. Same position, 7% owned. There's no universe where those guys should be 40% to 7%. If there's one takeaway from this show, it's this. The gap between Champagnie and Gary Trent is insane in ownership. Those guys are the same play today. I had Champagnie 13% optimal. I had Trent 17. You want to say Trent should be a little bit higher than him? I agree. That gap is a no doubt about it. Whoop, flip-flop. Those guys should not be separated like that. That is an inefficiency on FanDuel right now that you guys can take advantage of if it holds. Keep that in mind. We've got 10% ownership coming into Stephon Castle on FanDuel. I think you're going to need Wemby out for that to look any good. And obviously, if Victor Wembanyama is out for San Antonio, everything changes. You're reappropriating 32 minutes across this entire lineup, and you're removing like a 34% usage dude from the team. Those shots have to go somewhere. Keldon Johnson will probably be like 60% owned at that point. Zach Collins will be one of the chalkiest plays of the day, in particular on FanDuel where he's power forward eligible. San Antonio is going to be a giant question mark. You got to keep your eyes peeled there. Now, Utah. Lauri Markkanen questionable with low back spasms. There's no telling if he's playing. If this were like just a standard muscle injury, then I would be expecting him to not play today. He played the first half and played 17 and a half minutes against Sacramento, and then he was done for the second half. No clue. I'm guessing he sits unless he just feels fine. But I don't think Utah's going to be taking any chances. Yeah, Brandon, it wouldn't surprise me if CP3 is out as well. Right now, though, if Markkanen is in, he is 25% owned on DraftKings. Oh my God. And 60 on FanDuel. Now, I have Lauri Markkanen as the second best play on FanDuel. I agree with that ownership. He was 30% optimal for me. He was 21 on DK. If Lauri Markkanen is playing today, he's arguably the best overall play today across both sites. Maybe second behind James Harden for me. But the ownership doesn't stop here. 20 to Keontae George on DraftKings. 40 to Jordan Clarkson on DraftKings. 15 to Walker Kessler. On FanDuel, we've got 20 to Sexton. 15 to Clarkson. 10 to George, Cody Williams, and Walker Kessler. Lots and lots of love coming into Utah. But if Markkanen ends up out, there's going to be way more love here. We're probably going to end up getting to Kyle Filipowski at that point. Everybody will incrementally get better. Bryce Sensabaugh probably becomes interesting. John Collins gets a bit of a bump. The guards get a bit of a bump. But as I look at Utah, absolutely Lauri Markkanen, crazy priority if he's playing. Jordan Clarkson is over-owned on DraftKings, but does look like a good play. They're just splitting his minutes with Sexton. These guys are not really overlapping. Makes it hard to want to get to a 40% Clarkson if he might just play 24 minutes and Sexton plays the other 24. Maybe if Markkanen is out, that changes matters a little bit. Although, it was already an ass beating, but Clarkson and Sexton were direct backups for each other against Sacramento. Keep that in mind. Kessler looks good on both sites, just like a guy. Cody Williams on DraftKings is the guy that I'm most interested in terms of a GPP play. We have him 4% owned. I assume he's starting. He could play well over 30 minutes if Markkanen is out. But at 4% owned for a $4,100 small forward, he deserves a little bit more love today. They did start Clarkson last time. I don't know what this Utah team is doing, and that Markkanen news will be very important. But this is a team that's pulling a lot of ownership and well-deserved. The only guy whose ownership that I'm not like super excited about is probably Sexton on FanDuel at 23%. That strikes me as a little too high if he's coming off the bench. Because they just don't appear to want to play Clarkson and Sexton together. They're willing to play shitty Keontae George for 32 minutes. Do you guys have any San Antonio, Utah thoughts? Love to know where you guys stand here. Don't be afraid to hit the like button. 423 people in here. I'll tell you what, if I were tanking, I would definitely play Keontae George a lot of minutes. That will help you tank for sure, but also probably play Sexton and Clarkson together because those guys aren't going to stop anyone. This defense is probably the worst defense in the league. Only Walker Kessler is worth a shit. I mean, I've thought they were going to trade these guys for a while, but I would be shocked if Clarkson and Sexton, one of those two guys has got to be on the move. All right, I got nothing else. Final game. Game number 4. Phoenix Suns, 5.5-point favorites in Los Angeles. 223 total. Clips are on a back-to-back, so that could be an issue. Phoenix has a Q tag on Bradley Beal. These guys continue to just look like GPP plays and guys I want to late swap to because Durant's only 14% owned, Beal's 10, Tyus Jones is 12. Booker 6. I have all of those guys at like close to double optimal rate. I think they're the most interesting guys to me to try to pivot to in GPPs. If you want me to pick one, I want more Devin Booker than anybody else. 8,400 point guard, shooting guard, 6% owned on a 4-gamer. Yeah, what a great way to get different today. If that's too bright. If Devin Booker's 6% owned on a 4-gamer, Travis, totally disagree. They absolutely should not have traded Lauri Markkanen in the offseason. They will be able to trade him if they want to for a much better package than what was available to them this year. A lot of the teams that would want to get Lauri Markkanen just don't have the assets yet. We kind of need another year for things to shake out and some of these teams to get picks back. There will always, barring an injury, there will be a bigger market for Lauri Markkanen from a contender moving forward than there was in the offseason. If it's just like, oh, we're going to get Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Pajemski, and some Warriors picks, no thank you. No, thank you. There are way better deals out there. Phoenix is my favorite team to get to in large field GPPs on DraftKings. Durant, Booker, Beal, and Tyus Jones. Royce O'Neal to a degree, too. I think all of these guys are underrepresented. It's the same thing on FanDuel. Booker's properly owned on FanDuel, but I even think Beal and Durant are light. I definitely think Tyus Jones is light on both sites, especially DK. And I think Royce O'Neal's light, too. I like a lot of what Phoenix has today. Deegs, I don't think Golden State has a chance to land Lauri. We got to remember that Danny Ainge is the GM for Utah. That dude is not taking something he doesn't want. He's like the most dig your heels in GM that exists. When Lauri Markkanen gets traded, we are going to look at that deal and be like, holy shit, what did Ainge get? But I would be shocked if he ended up in Golden State. I'd love to see him in San Antonio. I think he'd be a really good fit there. I mean, Pod has good trade value, but we're talking about like a guy that's going to be like the 6th or 7th best player on an NBA team. You don't like it has value, but it's filler value. When they trade Markkanen, they're getting at least 2 unprotected picks, at least 2 unprotected swaps, and human beings coming back that aren't awful. Or they're taking on a bunch of shit salary and getting even way more than that. And Golden State's just not going to have that. They're going to be able to find better deals. Let me think about it. What teams are there? So I'd love to see him go back to Cleveland. Dallas will probably never have the assets. Denver doesn't have the assets. I mean, if Houston wanted to consolidate, that could be really interesting. Pacers probably no. Clippers no. In theory, the Lakers could get there after this year. Doesn't strike me as that type of guy. I mean, Memphis could, but no. Would shock. He doesn't strike me as a Heat guy. Bucks can't do it. Wolves can't do it. Pelicans would be really interesting. Pelicans certainly have the assets if they wanted to try to consolidate a little bit more. Knicks, no. I mean, if the Thunder wanted him, they can go get him today. I mean, technically they can't because he's not tradable. But like, obviously, the Thunder can go get any NBA player in the league. They could probably call up Denver and be like, yo, do you want 27 first-round draft picks? And get that done. Probably a little redundant on the Magic. Definitely not going to the Sixers. Definitely not going to the Suns. Definitely not going to the Blazers. I liked the idea of him going to the Kings, but they went to DeRozan. Spurs for sure. Raptors could get into that kind of business. Doesn't strike me as what they would do. Wizards aren't going to be that. Market's really small for him. There's not a lot of options. Not a lot of options. Spurs would be interesting, though. Hornets would fit. They're never going to do that. Would definitely work there, though. All right, let's finish this off with the Clippers, because now we're getting to my number one play of the day, and that is going to be James Harden. 9,100 on DraftKings, 9,400 on FanDuel. He's 40% owned on both sites. Completely deserves it. James Harden is the best play today as long as he's playing. It is a back-to-back, so we don't totally know. But I want all things James Harden. Love him, love him, love him, love him, love him. Not stopping there, though. $6,500 Ivica Zubac on DraftKings is... Chat, you got to hit me with this one. Ivica Zubac is 69% owned and deserves every bit of it. He's playing like 35 minutes a night. He's $900 cheaper on DraftKings and FanDuel. You can make a case that Zubac is actually the best play on DraftKings, but center only just sort of limits you a bit. But he's a better play than Harden. He just doesn't have the same flexibility. One less roster spot. That dude is preposterously priced for what he's doing right now. The Pistons should not have gotten Lauri Markkanen unless they wanted to continue to not be able to improve. They can't trade away picks right now. Otherwise, they would just lock themselves into a core of 39 wins. We're not done with the Clippers, though. 33% ownership on both sites to Norm Powell. Now, he's playing 34 minutes a night, 26% usage, MPE on both sites, and should be 30-something% owned. Derek Jones Jr. is 20 on DK and 30 on FanDuel. Absolutely should be owned like that. All of these guys are like 17% optimal or higher. Zubac and Powell are both in the 20s or 30 on DK. Harden's mid-30s. Every bit of this looks good. And then, unfortunately for us today, we're going to have to get to Amir Coffey on DraftKings. He's 3,100 and 24% owned. Now, I think he's over-owned. But Amir Coffey at 3,100, given what is happening with the Clippers right now, stupid price. He's 3,800 on FanDuel and basically unowned. And then finally, Chris Dunn is grabbing 10% ownership and deserves it at 3,600. Chris, nothing more than a lottery ticket. He's probably like the 50th best person on the slate. Not somebody that I could really attach any value to. But the Clippers are the highest owned team on DraftKings right now, and no part of that's surprising. The Harden-Zubac combo is probably the most popular two-person combo that exists. Brian, there's a 0% chance that Lauri Markkanen can get traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So you can throw that one right away. Absolute locked in 0% chance that he can go to the Timberwolves. Impossible. It would have to be a 3-team trade, and they don't even they couldn't trade anybody. They couldn't trade anybody. All right, 954. I have enough time to try to build one lineup in the single sim before we get out of here. So I'm going to hustle and see what we can build. So this will be for the DraftKings main. I didn't look at the payout structure. I'm just going to go to 30. All right, there we go. Let's build a lineup as fast as we can. We'll look for value. Zubac, straight in. PJ Washington, straight in. Sohan, straight in. Kyrie, put him in at point guard. Clarkson into shooting guard. Luka into guard. Ooh, can't do Markkanen. Let's do Derek Jones Jr. Gafford? This is basically just, here are all the best value plays. If this looks bad from an ROI perspective, then we're going to start lopping out one of those ownership guys. 66% ROI, just off the top of my head. Beep, boop, bop, boop, beep. Awesome. Couldn't have seen that one coming. Let's see if we can tweak this a little bit. One improvement. Let's get rid of... Who can we get rid of here? Let's see if we could swap out Clarkson and lower our ownership. Is there a better shooting guard? No, not even close. PJ Washington? Not even close. I wonder if we can get away from that Kyrie ownership. All right, what happens if I turn Kyrie into Van Vliet? No, he's too good of a value. He's a better value than him. Is it Zubats? No. I guess probably Sohan? Yeah, Sohan. So if I take Sohan out and replace him with Norm Powell, can I do anything better than Gafford? Can't, unfortunately. Does that get any better? We give up a little bit of fantasy points, but we do take a giant chunk out of ownership. Diggs. Because Lauri Markkanen is questionable. Nah, that took a step back. Not surprised. But we hit 250% lineups. That's all I could really hope for. I'm back for Live Before Lock later tonight. You don't get me on the deeper dive. I have a doctor's appointment, so I wasn't going to be able to make it back for the deeper dive, but I will be here for Live Before Lock. No playback tonight. Show schedule is shifted, so pay attention to it. Like button on your way out the door. I love this show so much. Tomorrow, another big one, and I'll be right back here, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Mill is the promo code, 30% off any NFL package. Link in the description. Have a great Thursday, everybody.